A couple of weeks ago, we dipped into the Terminator universe quite a bit, but I realized that there's no way to keep going without addressing the sheer number of ripoffs that it had. I made a list of about 30 movies to cover, and I had to pare it down to these 10, so expect more volumes of this in the future. Did I mention the future? Like, how many time travel arguments do you think I can get into the comments of this one? Number 10. Our first film here goes all the way back to 1986, and it's Hands of Steel, also known as Vengeance from the Future. It's got a futuristic setting, and there's a terrible disease spreading through the population, and a wacky cult leader. And then Daniel Green shows up, and I mostly know this dude from Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, but here's something weird. He did a bunch of smaller stuff back in the day, but now pretty much just shows up in Farrelly Brothers movies, and I'm assuming he's friends with them because he's in every single one of them. So yeah, it should be no surprise that he's a cyborg, part robot, and he's programmed to, well, terminate the cult leader. And he almost succeeds, but fails. His name is, I guess, Paco Curak. And again, in case you were wondering what his negative characteristics are, the answer is none. But I guess also his efficiency characteristics are also none, which doesn't really seem like something to brag about. He's working for a group at the behest of Nancy's dad, and Paco goes on the run, ending up finding a place to stay at an arm wrestling bar, and Joe D'Amato regular George Eastman is here. And it turns into a sort of like over-the-top ripoff, although that didn't come out until '87, so I guess Stallone ripped this off, right? He quickly becomes the top dog in the bar, but still needs to service his robo-hands in this very familiar looking scene, and he reveals that he's 70% robot parts and was in an accident, and the first thing he remembers was the assassination attempt, and I guess he defeated his, I guess we shall say, Terminator programming. But then it takes a weird turn into Blade Runner ripoff territory as he has to face down some other cyborgs, and this one's by Sergio Martino. And I haven't really covered him on the channel yet, but he has some really great flicks that I'm sure I'll get onto in some video or another. But this one here is pretty fun. It really is a mixture of a bunch of different films, but it really wants you to be thinking Terminator, at least in the beginning of it, even if it goes off in a little different direction a little later on. But it does throw in some great practicals here and there, and it's worth checking out. Number 9. Let's stay in the 80s and check out 1988's Future Hunters, which starts off telling us that it's 2025. Wow, we're almost there. And it's 40 years after the Holocaust? Like that's weird. They're saying the nuclear war was in 1985 or so, several years before the movie was released. So it's an odd choice. And we're told that some people are looking for the Spear of Destiny, which they say can help them travel back in time to stop the Holocaust. And Matthew here is everyone's last hope, and he finds the tip of the spear. But then we're in 1986, and oh, hey, the T-1000 is here. And Matthew comes back in time, and when someone is stabbed with the spear, they first have this face and then vanish. They have to find the shaft of the Spear of Destiny and join the pieces together to stop the Holocaust, which will happen in 1986. I have so many jokes about joining the tip and the shaft to save the world. And there's just so many that I can't decide. So insert your own joke here. Matthew dies, but oh no, Otis is here looking for the shaft, and they have to find the professor that the future man told them is the key to stopping what will happen, leading them to China and some of the most awkwardly filmed fight scenes, and also a guy named Bruce Lee. Not that Bruce Lee, this is Lee with one E. And as soon as Robert Patrick gets out of the way, the fighting gets pretty solid. And this fight scene is just so random. This character just shows up and fights them, but then is never seen in the movie again. And the weirdest thing is that this is actor Huang Zhang-li playing a character named Silver Fox, a character that would appear in a number of martial arts films, just showing up in this one at random. And this is directed by Cirio Santiago, who did a ton of low-budget action and exploitation flicks in the 70s and 80s, including the classic Vampire Hookers. And outside of the very obvious setup, which borrows very heavily from Terminator, it then just kind of goes off on its own and becomes a weird series of adventures, some including a tribe of underground little people and Amazon tribes, and it's okay. It gets a bit dull for a while, but then it switches gears into some strange stuff and it gets kind of fun again. Number 8. Let's go forward a bit to 2013's Perfect Android Rising. It starts with a tech guy designing a new thing called Genesis, which is funny because this was 2 years before Terminator Gen I size, and we're told that it's the 2030s and the US is looking for alternatives to war and Genesis is their program. But they're having issues with it, and it's a human-looking robot played by Chris, I think, Notorial, I hope I got that right, who also wrote and directed the movie.
They wanted to disassemble me.
No disassemble! He's set free and kills his creator's wife, so we're dipping into Frankenstein territory here. And then there's a rebel resistance group, and Dr. Hess has made a new robot fighter based on his dead wife named Leah, and she's programmed to go and terminate the resistance.
Hey, dodge this.
And now we're doing Matrix ripoffs. They fry her with an EMP and plan to reprogram her.
Okay, fine. I love this plan. I'm thrilled to be a part of it.
And now we're Ghostbusters, apparently. It's super low budget, and IMDb says it was made for around $17,000. And yeah, not much happens in it. And it's not like overly Terminator ripoffy as much as it is, well, everything ripoffy. Like, there really doesn't seem to be a lot in here that's not directly from some other movie, and it's clear that Notorial takes inspiration from lots and is inspired by lots of pop culture, and in fact appears to mostly do fan film shorts of popular characters. Between 2004 and now, he has 165 director credits, but only about 3 of them are features and not fan film shorts. And it's kind of dull for the most part. Number 7. Let's go down a sillier road right now with Terminatrix from 1995, a Japanese Pinku movie. We're told that in the future, the world is overpopulated, so all sex had to be overseen by the government and could only be for procreation that was permitted by the government. But one woman organized a resistance group to stop it all, so they decide to go back in time to prevent her from ever stopping them. So, of course, a naked woman appears in the past and starts killing people and taking their clothing. And yep, you guessed it, another naked woman soon follows. So you get it that this is a direct sex parody of the Terminator, copying scenes like instead of going to the gun shop, the Terminatrix visits a sex toy vendor, and they call it the T69, of course, and she can render a man impotent. And that's what they're trying to do to Mr. Sarah here, who will go on to become the resistant leader's father. But if you're expecting like a standard kind of porn parody thing, this isn't quite that since it's soft core stuff, but it does follow the plot line pretty closely with the whole mistaken identity based on the same name concept, and it's pretty unhinged at times. Like, there's a whole bit where the Terminatrix is attacking Mr. Sarah and it's attempting to pull his pants down because I guess she can't just kill him, she has to make him impotent instead. And Future Girl grabs a gun and doesn't just shoot the robot. No, she shoots her directly in the vagina. And then, in a play on the whole Terminator self-operation scene, she removes the bullets from up there and plops them down into the sink. Yeah, it's pretty silly and entertaining. Number 6. Let's go back again to the 80s for The Time Guardian from 1987, which tells us that in the year 4039, robots had taken over the Earth. But there's still one city left, and their plan, of course, is to go back in time to fix things. Al is here as the city's leader, trying to fend off robot attacks, which are these big things here. And holy crap, Princess Leia is in this? And I love that in this future the robots are like, what is the most efficient form? I don't know, but massive horns have to be involved. It seems like the robots are actually partially organic and used to be human and have been using time travel to continually attack them. And they know that they have to go back to the 20th century to try to stop them. They send Ballard and Petra, who has to wear this boob armor, back in time to the late 80s in order to make way for them to transfer the whole city there. But the Jendiki follow, and they meet up with Annie here. And here's an interesting tidbit. Originally, Carrie Fisher was cast to play her, the woman from the present who helps out. But shortly before shooting began, she asked to switch to play Petra, the future warrior. And there were tons of issues behind the scenes on this one, like rewrites were forced on the filmmakers by the production team shortly before filming, and their scheduled days were cut, with most involved saying the finished product looked nothing like the script that they started with. And it was a massive bomb at the box office, ruining careers and ending future production deals for many involved. It was considered to have completely stalled the prospects of lead actor Tom Burlinson, and it's not hard to see why. Like, it's kind of dull and nothing we haven't seen before, and it feels like a low budget Terminator, which is funny because at $8 million of Australian monies, it was comparable to the cost of that film. Number 5. The words ripoff and the asylum go hand in hand, and in 2009, to cash in on the release of Salvation, they just went full blast with the Terminators. Like, look, this was the poster. Look at that font. How is there no lawsuit here? I'll never know. But we're in the future, in space, and there's robots called, are you ready? Do you think there'll be a T involved? Yep, they're TRs, and they all look like a buff dude, and they decide to revolt and fight back against humanity. Meanwhile, on Earth, things sure look a whole lot like present day, but I guess it's like the near future? But the TRs show up and start bombing things and attacking, all with the same skins. And then it's just a bunch of the TRs chasing some randos around town, killing them and using really silly layered in explosions. And then Jeremy Lendon shows up in it because there was a point where the Asylum and Sci-Fi were basically just keeping this guy's entire career going. But then all the ones played by Paul Logan are TR4s, but there's also TR5s, and those ones can look all different, and no one knows who is one and who isn't. So in the long run, you've got this plot where the machines are bombing humans and also hiding amongst us, and we don't know who is who. So this plot is a little more derivative of the Battlestar Galactica reboot than it is the Terminator. But let's face it, with that cover art, font, and setup, there's no way that this isn't a ripoff. And like, the craziest thing about this is how slow motion everything feels. It's also chill and low key, but weirdly there's a bunch of blood and gore effects. Like, not good blood and gore effects, but they're there nonetheless. And then I just imagine the producers sitting there with the VFX guy and saying, you know, we want the audience to think Terminator, but also know that we're doing Galactica 2. And they showed them this thing, and they were like, perfect. Number 4. Look, we have to talk about 2016, a movie from 2010, from Ghana, because this is wild. Now, for my more geographically challenged friends out there, Ghana is located in West Africa, and movies from there are referred to as Gollywood, and they're generally very low budget affairs with special effects to match. Now, the version I found didn't have subtitles, so I had to guess what was going on, which made for an interesting watch, let me tell you. So you have this scientist guy who has a pretty impressive PC setup with 2 mice, and he spots this spaceship entering our atmosphere. And damn, this is some realistic stuff here that I guess is just like run through iTunes. And their ship is basically the Enterprise with a booty, and the aliens, well, they may look a little familiar as well. They're freaking pred aliens, and it's said that they decided to start their invasion in Ghana because it's the most peaceful nation on Earth, which we find out from the news report that's inexplicably in English. And I'm not sure who this character is, but this kid is equally 13 and 35. And oh boy, they can turn invisible, throw cars at people, and they promise to take over the world by 2016, which is hilarious because they have a really hard time catching or killing anyone, really. And here's the thing, movies in Ghana are generally split into two parts, so there's a 2016 part 1 and part 2. And what's hilarious is that it's not even a cliffhanger, it just kind of ends part 1 on a dialogue scene. But then part 2 gives us some pretty glorious moments. And death scenes. But you may be asking, where does the Terminator come in? Why is it even on this list? Well, remember that scientist? Guess what he cooks up to fight the aliens with? That's right, this dude in a leather jacket and glasses who jumps over cars, dodges bullets that are shot from, I guess, a gun that comes out of the alien's chest, and then fires buzzsaws from his body. But when it's set on fire, yep, it's a classic T-800 exoskeleton. So, if you were bummed that we never saw Terminator vs. Aliens, I guess here's your chance. Number 3. Here's a more known and prominent one, and it's 1991's Eve of Destruction, which has this scientist here named Eve, who is trying to perfect a perfect android human replica. And she's made Eve 8, a model that looks just like herself, who gets shot while on a routine run during a robbery and goes rogue. Gregory Hines is here too, and have you seen this dude tap dance? This guy did it all, man. He's a good actor, he's very funny, and could dance up a storm. Jim gets filled in on Eve 8's existence and told he needs to help find her, and that Ghostbusters 2 douche is here and tells him that the bot is on the edge of combat readiness and can attack if harmed, and he's teamed up with Human Eve. Like, one thing's for certain by now, and that's if you're doing a movie in this time frame about a robot that looks like a person, you're gonna have to have a scene in which they're doing a form of self-surgery in a hotel room. And there's even a bit in a biker bar with her scanning the room. But hey, T2 hadn't come out yet, so this isn't quite ripping that off. And in fact, in general, the plot here isn't overly similar, except for the fact that they both involve a robot coated in human skin navigating the city, while a man and woman try to locate her. But here's the thing, it was released in the same year as T2, and was made in order to cash in on that upcoming film. When it came out, pretty much every review and discussion of the film compared it to Terminator, and was consistently referred to as a clone. Maybe because of that perception, it was a flop, making only $5 million at the box office when its budget was $13 million. It gets a late in the game appearance by R.J. Fletcher, although he goes uncredited in the film, and it's kind of a shame that this gets called a ripoff. I mean, even I'm doing it, but it's more than that. And it's pretty good. It's not great or anything, but it's a really enjoyable watch, with a very strong finale on some subway tracks. So, maybe check this one out. Number 2. Here's one that really shouldn't need an explanation on why it's here, and it's 1989's Lady Terminator. It begins in the past with the Queen of the South Sea, who is constantly searching for the man who can satisfy her. And if they can't, are you ready for this? The snake that's in her vagina will devour their penis, which was the original concept for the Terminator, but James Cameron switched it at the last minute to future robot. Anyway, this guy grabs the snake and turns it into a knife. Yep. And she then curses him and says in 100 years she'll have her revenge on his great-granddaughter, which is a terrible plan. Like, he'll be dead. He won't even know the curse happened, and the great-granddaughter won't understand why. It's just really pointless. The queen then goes to the sea, and much later, in modern times, a woman just so happens to be researching the South Sea Queen, going scuba diving, and is captured underwater where the snake takes her over. She emerges from the ocean, approaching several punks while nude, and she snecks them. That guy's great-granddaughter is here, and she's a pop star, and Tanya starts hunting her down, shooting people while in a leather getup. There's even a bit where she kills the wrong person based on mistaken identity, and there's even a shootout in a nightclub. Some of the shots are exact reproductions, and some direct quotes.
Come with me if you want to. Let's move.
There's a bit with a car crashing into a police desk, although it throws in this point-blank shooting, and it's just weird because it's so clearly lifting bits so wholesale from Terminator, and even the title, but the premise is just so far removed from it that it's weird that they went in that direction with it. And yeah, for like the first 20 minutes or so, you'll be like, huh, this doesn't seem like Terminator at all. It's way, way weirder. But then at a certain point, it becomes as close to a remake as you're gonna get. Just one with vagina snakes. It was from Indonesia and has since become a cult hit, and it's pretty fun and silly, even though of course it's gonna feel a bit familiar at times. And when I say at times, I mean all times. Number 1. Alright, number 1, and I feel bad because I featured this movie before on a list of alien ripoffs, and it's shocking dark, but this one is a masterpiece. We find out that in the future, Venice is flooded and a dead city. We see that the station there is overrun by mysterious creatures, and they have to send a team in to investigate, including this company man who seems a bit aggressive. The rest of the team is pretty awesome and includes this woman who is talking to no one in general.
All right, you bunch of pussies, I'm back and I'm kicking ass.
This guy just spinning nunchucks around. This shirtless surfer dude who lets her check out his new gun, which she just then swings around and points it at people for the hell of it. And in case she looks familiar, this is the actress who plays the prostitute in Demons that gets infected first. But she actually has a much bigger role here. So they go in to try to figure out what happened to the people there, and yeah, none of this sounds like Terminator, right? In fact, it's the exact plot of Aliens, well, except for the whole on-Earth part. And Aliens never contained any performances like this one.
So you caught me, big deal. If you enter the city, you're gonna die, die, die.
And it's by the undisputed ripoff king, Bruno Mattei. And in case you're not keeping track, I've had his movies on several different ripoff lists so far. Cruel Jaws was on the Jaws list, this movie was on the Alien list, Night Killer was on the Nightmare on Elm Street list, Hell of the Living Dead on the Romero list, and Robo-War on the Predator one. And oh, hey, did I mention the words Night Killer?
Hey bud, what happened to your clothes?
I got molested in the little boy's room.
So yeah, this one has bodies wrapped up in a sticky goo stuck up on a wall with a guy saying, "Kill me." And yeah, you're saying to yourself right now, this is clearly a whole Aliens thing, so what's it doing on a Terminator ripoff list? Well, you see, it's not only known as Shocking Dark. No, that was just the title it was released as in some places, and is currently released in the US as. But in Italy and many other countries it was released like this. Yes, as Terminator 2. But that stuff doesn't come into play until around the halfway point when one of the alien creatures injures Fuller, who is revealed to be part robot, or at least just have some metal stuck on top of his arm. And you say, well, isn't that just a Bishop reference, especially when he's also an amalgam of the Burke character, considering he locks the Ripley-ish character and the little girl in a room with a baby creature and turns off the video monitor in a near exact duplication of that scene. So maybe the whole Terminator thing was just the title? Well, nope, because at the tail end of the film, Fuller goes full villain and starts hunting down our heroes in a steam-filled factory. But wait. Come on, this is still just aliens, right? This still doesn't feel very Terminator. Well, now bear in mind I have to spoil the ending here, but the last 10 minutes of this has Sarah and the little girl going back in time to before the catastrophe that flooded Venice, and Robo Fuller gives chase, revealing a half-robot face. And only now, in the last 10 minutes, does it feel Terminator. But it dives in full force with the whole traveling to the past while a muscle-bound robot with exposed parts stalks you thing. And this movie is glorious. I love it, and I love everything about it. It's like Jack Black and Mos Def sweeted aliens, and it's perfect. So there you have it, 10 movies that rip off Terminator in one way or another. Either just takes a general inspiration from, a little bit of the title from, whichever. They're all kind of knockoffs. And actually most of these were fun. There was a couple of them that were a little on the duller side, but for the most part, I'd say more than half of these were a lot of fun to watch and worth checking out. And I have so many other movies marked down as Terminator ripoffs. There's bound to be a sequel to this in the future. But if there's ones that you guys can think of that I missed, let me know down below. I'll see if they're on the list that I made. If not, I'll add them on there and we'll get it going. But let me know what other Terminator ripoffs you know about. And let me know if you've seen any of these and enjoyed them, and which ones you'd like to see now out of these lists. And yeah, if you like the video, hit the like button. If you enjoy the channel, hit that subscribe button. Hit the bell so you get notified when new videos are out. And check out my Patreon page at patreon.com/movietimelines. You can help support this channel, but you also do that just by watching. So thank you for doing that, and I'll see you very shortly for another great one. Thanks a lot, guys, and bye-bye.